just be like, everything came out good. You don't want to wonder. I mean, that's nothing to worry about. You just need to work on it yourself. You know, stop going out and getting drunk.
Oh, please.
All right. So anyway,
This will be on there.
so the first thing you want to do is I went over the layers section up here, but I want to get more into this down here, which is your layer adjustments and things like that. What we've got text, because a lot of what this has to do with right here is dealing with text on effects, or just shapes, things that you might have. I'm going to go from the top. So I never really use bevel emboss, but if I click that, it would add like a bevel emboss. It looks like it looks 3D almost now. And what you want to do with these, everything that I'm showing you, you want to play with, but this is your palette, and we can do an inner bevel, we can do an outer bevel, you can see how it changes. Pillow bevel, you can see what happened there. Stroke emboss. So these are things to add touches to shapes or text. I really wouldn't use these on images or pictures or anything. So let's just choose the outer bevel. Now the thing you can do is do depth, and as you bring the depth out, you can see it just actually made it like 3D-ish, and you can change this to size. So I can bring this up like that. Soften, I can soften it out. So direction up, that's down, so it changes the direction. Technique, smooth, chisel hard, chisel soft. So what you want to do with each one of these when we're going through them is just get to know them, play around with them. But the only way you're going to play around with these effects are you're going to use text. And just see what they do. So if I click that a little bit, it brings this chisel. See that chisel? Because I have chisel, and if I hit chisel hard, it'll play with it. However, now the shading, I can change the angle. Right here with this, I can just move it around. I grab it and I move it around. My shading, all these modes change things. So that's basically the bevel and emboss. So I can uncheck that and it brings it back to how we had it. Okay, so I want to X out of that. So next thing I want to do is stroke. So stroke actually adds a stroke, and that's the color, which is an outline around the text. So I can change this to blue. You can see what happened there, and hit OK. And I can make the size go smaller or bigger, just like that. I can position this in the inside. So if I do this, if I bring it down, you can see that the stroke is on the inside instead of the outside. If I want to make that different, in the blend mode, I can do things like overlays, multiply, different things, blend modes. They all equal different effects. If I'm doing a stroke, I usually just do it normal outside. I have outside normal, and I just add 3 picks or how much I ever want, and then I can change the color here. So if I want to see what stroke, I can just click around and change to see what colors look best. Okay, and fill type is color, and I can use gradient, which if I use gradient, it does that. So I can click in this gradient window, and I can pick like that color to maybe a green. So I'll click that and hit OK, and then I'll click in this box, double click it, and then I might have this blue color. Hit OK. And we'll go over gradients later in a section, but you can move these around. This is your threshold at the top, this is your threshold at the bottom, and this is your center. So, and you can move this, say if you want more blue than green, you can move that centerpiece around. I usually just start with, like if I want more green than blue, you can see what happens here. When I move this, here to move this. If I keep it in the center, then it'll do a center thing, and I'll hit OK. So you can see what happened there. I've got the blue up the top, and it fades to green. I can do things like like angle that, so I can have it go from blue to green, because the angle is going 157 degrees. Like, I can have it go just like that, and it'll go from blue to green. 90 and stuff like that, or straight up and down, will make it go like that. So if I tighten this, if I click this, you can move this over and see what's going on. If I bring this down, if I bring them together real tight, you can play with where it's going to, the gradient's going to be on the actual picture. See how I'm changing that? Yeah, I can do these. So, you don't want to get too corny with it. You don't want to look too corny. This is where you start getting into what looks good and what doesn't in design. So that's the gradient. Okay. Then we have inner shadow, which means if I want an inner shadow, I have distance, choke, and size, and opacity. So let's move this down to 100%. And you can see that inner shadow starting to come about. So it actually starts to look 3D, like this stroke is coming up above that. If I change this distance to about like right there, and this size means it gets bigger. So see that, what it's doing? So you can play with these and get some really cool effects. And then you can change the opacity too. You can play with the opacity. So that might give look how that looks 3D, like it's poking through. So play with that, and then if you don't have that right there, that means it isn't selected anymore. So make sure it's selected, then hit effects. So you have things like inner glow. Inner glow right here will put a glow on the inside as well, so you can see it if I change the choke and the size. You see what happens? It just adds a glow on the inside. So it's kind of opposite. And you can make it like yellow. You can make it like a hot pink. So maybe it's that, and then kind of go. Maybe it glows pink to get a 3D effect. So that's the inner glow. And then satin, I really never use that. Color overlay is if you want to color overlay the whole thing. Gradient overlay is if you want to overlay the whole thing with a gradient. Pattern overlay if you want to overlay it with a pattern. Outer glow, so let's choose that. And we want to choose a color that looks like a glow, so we'll choose a yellow, this kind of yellow color. And you can see that what happened. But that means that the noise is 19%. Change that down to 0, because the noisier it gets, the more speckled it gets. Change the opacity down to about right there, and you can change the spread, and you can change the size if you want to get a high glow or something like that. And you can change the opacity here to 40. So you can play with the glow and see what that means. That usually gives a glow around stuff. So you can see what it's doing right there. Okay? And then effects, drop shadow. So drop shadow will add a drop shadow underneath and give it pop in 3D. I use this a lot sometimes. So we'll go here and we'll see that shadow that's coming underneath. See, I'm gonna see it right there. So I'll pull it away, and you can see what happens when I change this and when I change this. Do you see how it gets fuzzier? More like a realistic drop shadow. And then I'm going to bring that distance in. And right there you go. It's just like a shadow. And I can make that opacity 100 or mess with it how much I think it should be. And usually I'll do a drop shadow when it's over top of something that you can't really read and things like that. So that's the drop shadow. Alright, now we're going to hit OK. So now I've showed you everything really within the effects palette. We're going to skip layer masks because that's more advanced. We're going to talk about fills and adjustment layers after this, and you already know how to make a new group and create a new layer and trash something. So the last thing we're going to talk about is the adjustment layers. Okay.